What's going on, guys? Vulkan here, and today we're talking about Mew Legend from Webzen. This is a free-to-play hack and slash MMORPG that was released in 2017. It features a cash shop, premium subscription, and honestly, it does remind me a lot of Divillion, which wasn't a terrible game before Tryon ran into the ground. So is Mew Legend worth your time? It looks like Diablo. Does it perform like Diablo? Let's find out. Getting things kicked off with classes. We have a decent assortment here with 6 different ones that feature some different types of combat. We have the Blader, which is like a berserker, Spellbinder, which is like a control mage, a Whisperer, which is a ranger, the Dark Lord, which is a tank, War Mage, which is a mage, and Black Phantom, which is like an AoE kind of darkness style mage. So all of these classes have their own identity, they have their own skills, and they have their own personal sets of gear. Each class has their own weapons they use and own items they use. Now, moving into gameplay, most of my time was spent playing the Spellbinder, which is a ranged character that kind of dishes out AoE damage, some damage over time, uses chakromes or floating knives as their weapons. And the game itself is a theme park design. You're traveling from hub to hub, basically collecting meaningless quests. I spammed through literally all of them. They either focused on killing enemies or clicking on shiny objects. That was about it. I'd return to the quest giver, collect the reward, and it was a largely forgettable experience. It goes extremely quickly. In about 4 hours, I was level 50, halfway through the zones, and most of my skills were unlocked. The game itself features 4 continents that the story is going to take you through before diving into Endgame. Endgame is essentially just a collection of events and dungeons to gather top-end loot. It wasn't extremely impactful. It's very limited. It does have enough to give somebody something to do at max level, but really it's held back by its limited run potential. You can only run a few things once per day with randomly appearing rifts out in the world that you can run up to 5 times a day. So I wasn't exactly impressed by Endgame. I think that they could have done a lot more here and also made it a little bit easier for the player to start getting into things. So let's move into skills and souls. So kicking things off with souls, as you level up, you're going to gain something called soul experience, which gives you a ton of different stats to invest in, all with certain milestones that give passive bonuses. And this is a cool system, right? It allows you to invest in something specific rather than a generic strength or intelligence stat. So if I wanted to build my Spellbinder with flat out critical chance and damage, I can do that, but I would then miss out on health and defense. Now things do get interesting at soul level 300, because at that point you can rebirth and then gain access to more powerful passives. So it's kind of like a prestige system from Call of Duty, and you start over, but you gain things like increasing all damage to elites and bosses, or increasing your mounted movement speed that you can then invest those new soul points into. From a skill perspective, I really like the skill design in this game. It's bombastic, it's fun, it's explosive, it feels good to use skills and just wipe out huge packs of enemies. And after playing through most of the game, it's really never gotten old. Basically, I would just teleport into a pack, drop an AoE, everything explodes, and it feels powerful and satisfying to play. So Mew Legend definitely did well in that regard. Each class has 6 basic attack skills, 14 class skills, and 8 expert skills they get to choose from. Now the expert skills are these extremely powerful abilities. They have about a medium cooldown, so you can use them fairly often, and you're going to unlock them at certain thresholds. You're going to have a choice between 2. You choose the one you want to use, and you can change these at any time. So they're not static. You can basically go back and change them if you don't like the choice you made. Now, the problem I ran into is all of the skills feel satisfying to use. They all feel powerful, and even the support skills still deal damage. So you can have something like a protective dome that goes over your friends. It gives them health, and then any enemies that enter that dome continue to take damage over time. So even your defensive abilities are technically offensive as well. So it's pretty cool, but the issue is you only have 6 slots for both your expert and class skills. So between 22 skills, you have to choose 6 that you want to use at any point in time, and your left mouse click is being restricted to a basic attack only. You can freely swap these whenever you want, but that's something you're gonna have to go through and choose what you want your loadout to be. I want to talk about loot. So Mew Legend has been a fairly fun game so far, right? But loot is incredibly lacking compared to others in this genre. What I'm about to say I want to sink in because it's extremely alarming. I'm a level 55 currently, and I have not picked up a single piece of loot that I have used. Not a single 1. And I picked up what little loot has dropped, and it's all been much weaker than my current setup, because all of my gear has come from a box in my inventory that every 10 levels gives me a brand new set of weapons and a full set of gear that I will then use for the next 10 levels. This is a problem. If you market yourself as a hack and slash style game with a loot aspect, and you visually look similar to Diablo, you need to drop loot. Most of the stuff I've seen is gray junk, and the occasional blue drops, but that's still roughly a 15 to 20% power loss compared to what I have currently. This severely handicaps the game in my eyes. It is not compelling to kill a boss and see a bunch of grays drop on the ground. Now, bosses do drop this thing called a cube that is used to open for gear, so basically it's a chest that you can open 3 times, but I've never gotten a piece for my class. It's always been for other classes, particularly Dark Lord, which is interesting. So I can't really compare that, but imagine working your way up to a story boss and you finally kill him and he drops nothing but junk on the ground. That is zero motivation and incentive to continue playing the game or even care about story bosses. Why am I playing this? The game is focused on loot because the story is not great. The end game that I reached was not exactly exciting. So why am I playing this game? You know, usually games can crutch themselves with some interesting loot and interesting gameplay aspects, but right now there really isn't anything outside of interesting skill design, and that's a big issue. So, and I think part of the reason is the next thing we're going to talk about, and that's the cash shop. So the cash shop in Mew Legend is your typical Eastern variant, right? It's full of boosts, it's full of wings, mount, and other convenience items. It contains one of the things that I hate the most, and those are time-limited items. Things like, pay $10 for this mount, but it only lasts for 7 days. Those type of things. So you're continuously either paying for a mount or handicapping yourself by moving at like 10% movement speed. They also sell dungeon keys and tickets to run end-game content more than the daily limit, which is only once or twice. So basically, you spend real money, gain additional keys to run end-game activities, to roll the dice on getting more gear that then is not overly impressive or useful. It's a extremely intrusive cash shop, and one that is going to turn away a lot of folks and has turned away a lot of folks. So really kind of my final thoughts on Mew Legend. It's a fun game to play, right? It's a fun game to spend some time. Don't expect a challenge. The game's super easy. I don't think my health has ever dropped below 50% in the 8 hours and 55 levels that I've accrued so far. You can play with friends, do some group content if you want, once or twice a day. But the issue is the loot and the cash shop. The lack of loot is extremely concerning, and honestly, like I said, it killed my motivation to continue playing the game. You combine that with the fact that you can purchase dungeon keys for more chances at loot in endgame. And really what it seems like to me is they took all the loot in the game, locked it behind a limited number of endgame runs. Instead of letting loot drop in the world, they give you a stimulus package of gear every 10 levels to drip feed you just enough to push you through the story and get you to endgame where the real loot is. But also where they can start making money from the cash shop, because you're almost required to purchase additional keys and tickets and things like that if you want to make any sort of solid progression on your character. This is a horrible way to conduct business, and this honestly has pretty much ruined the game for me. It's ruined the game for other people I've talked to, and if it wasn't for this practice, I think the gameplay elements are strong enough that this game could have been something fun. It could have been something great, but instead they decided to not drop any sort of loot, not provide you with any sort of carrot to run after, and then end game is nothing but a cycle of cash shop and then into dungeon stuff. So ultimately we have another game that could have been fun but was ruined by corporate greed, and it's just filled with varying levels of player disrespect. So I want to know from you guys, has anybody out there played Mew Legend? What do you guys think? Am I completely off the mark, or did you guys kind of feel the same way about it? That wraps this one up, guys. Thank you guys so much for the support. Thank you for watching, and as always, this has been Vulkan, and I'll talk to you guys next time.